First, we definitely want to thank Steve Alten for being here with us today virtually. Author of the MEG series, but a bunch of other stuff too, and we want to make sure that we get into that today. So, Steve, to start off with, MEG is a huge cultural phenomenon, and the books have brought folks to the movies and vice versa. What do you think makes that universe and those characters appealing on that macro scale?
I think at the very least, the thought about getting eaten by a giant shark is propelling, for students. But it didn't explain the initial interest in the books by the teens. When they first came out in 1997, it came out in hardback and it sold pretty well. But in 1998, when it came out in paperback, we got a whole new audience, teenagers who were all emailing me and telling me, I hate reading, but I loved reading Meg. And then we started getting email from teachers who were telling me that their worst students were reading, sneaking the book into their classroom. And then I got letters from parents who were telling me that they'd never seen their child read before, and here they were reading Meg. Now, that caused us to open up a nonprofit called Adopt an Author that supported the teachers in high school who were using the book in their classes. So we'd provide them with free curriculum materials, tests, quizzes, outlines, vocabulary lists. And also one other added thing was direct contact with the author. So Adopt an Author is still in business. It's a nonprofit. It's still in business today. If you go to adoptanauthor.com, you can see everything's there. But it also, a lot of teachers wanted to find out, why is this working like this? Because it didn't work with other books. And so they put their money together and hired some specialists to read my books and read other books. And what they found was that my books are very descriptive, that the students were actually telling them that when they read my book, they could see in their head like a video was playing, and that helped them comprehend what was going on. And so for that reason, we now know that these books are great if you have people who are visual readers, visual thinkers. They really thrive with these books.
So what is it about your writing style, do you think, that hooks them?
I mean, they're right. I do write visually, very descriptively. Just that's the way I see the story too in my head. So I'm sort of translating it for them.
And I'm kind of skipping down a little bit, but we did want to talk about your Adopt an Author program. So you said that is teens who got interested in the MEG first. Have you been able to kind of keep them hooked on the whole series? Have they been picking up one after another and just kind of continuing on that journey?
Yeah, they just pretty much continued on their own, which is great because the teachers have a lot of trouble getting interested in reading. And reading affects everything in school. You know, it affects your vocabulary, it affects your thought process, it affects your ability to understand what you just read. And so the fact that they're now going to the sequels for recreational reading, and then my other series, that's really good for the teachers.
That's awesome. Got one more about the MEG. It pertains to the MEG series, but also your other work on a wider scale. How do you balance the scientific aspect with narrative? So how do you know you have enough science, enough like verisimilitude to support the story, but not take it over?
Well, I don't want to overload them with science. The methodology I use is that I do a lot of research. And so whatever science is pertaining to that particular part of the book, I read up on, and then I have to put it down on paper in the least amount of words and sentences possible, while it's still understandable to me and the reader.
What's your favorite way to do research? So what is your research process like for people who might be new to it?
Well, with the internet, it enables you to do everything right there. So, I'll surf the topic and I'll let it take me to places where I had no idea I was going, because I'm not an expert in any of these things. Once I start doing the research, it takes you to places that, you never even knew existed. And that's where a lot of the story gets fleshed out.
Have you been able to sort of get into contact with some scientists who have become like go-to sources for you?
I used to have some of those guys. One was a rocket scientist for NASA, a submarine captain for a Los Angeles class sub that I was able to work with for the Goliath. Um, Once in a while, I'll track somebody down that has the kind of interest that I'm into for the particular book, and see what their own theories are. And once they find out who I am, they are pretty cooperative.
Are they pretty excited when you contact them with questions? Like, do they get jazzed up because they know that they're contributing to this?
Yeah, I mean, I don't do it very often, but when I do it, it's pretty successful. So
That's awesome.
the the captain of the Los Angeles Gas Taxa, he was amazing. He wouldn't let me thank him in the acknowledgments because he didn't want there to be any problem down the road. But he gave me scenes that were very realistic, and so he became my checkpoint guy, which was great.
Yeah, that's awesome to make those contacts. So the Meg has its fandom, but what other title or series of yours would you recommend to readers, and why do you think they would enjoy that as much as they enjoy the Meg series?
I think probably the next one would be The Lock. I've been working on the third book of this series for, God, an unbelievable long time, 7 years. And it's just, I had no idea it was going to be this kind of book, but it's my longest book and almost 600 pages, and I'm still got a little bit left. And then the main series is probably pretty popular too.
Yeah.
The trilogy about the Mayan calendar's doomsday prophecy.
Okay, so you brought up writing, but that brings us to my next question too. Writing tips. I know you can't teach us everything about writing books in a few minutes, but what are some pieces of writing advice you wish you'd gotten when you were starting out?
That's tough because if you go to my website, stevealten.com, there are writing tips posted there, and I think that's probably the best place to start because it outlines how if you're really interested in becoming an author or just writing a book, it'll teach you how to get started with the topic, how to do the research, how to lay out the beat sheets, and how to research your characters.
What made you want to get into it?
I just always enjoyed writing. I love to read, and what finally got me into it is that I found a topic that, when I was growing up, Jaws came out when I was 15 years old, and I loved the movie and I loved the book, but that got me interested in reading about great white shark attack, real ones. And there was always a little blurb about Carcharodon megalodon, this huge Smithsonian jaw of the 60-foot shark, but I could never find anything else about it. So about 20 years later, I got a Time magazine article in the mail. On the front page was a viperfish, but the article talked about the Mariana Trench and these hydrothermal vents, these communities of warm water that were flourishing. And I thought, what was the name of that giant shark that I read about when I was 15? This would be a hell of a place to put it for a novel. And I thought it was a great idea, and I just committed myself to writing the book at night because I had a day job. So I'd write every night from like 10 o'clock at night till 3 in the morning. And on weekends.
Late night.
Yeah, not much has changed that way, unfortunately.
So I'm going off script a little bit, but how do you find the endurance to stick with a series, and a series that's not just a trilogy, which is daunting enough? Like, what keeps you at it and what gives you the energy? What holds your interest about it? How do you keep going with a series, multiple books? And do you know where you're going, or do you reach the end of each book and then just ask yourself what's next? And I know that's multiple questions, but.
Well, what keeps me going is that you don't get paid until you turn it in. So there are bills to pay, and that keeps you going. Of course, I'm a lot older now than I was when I first started. It's not as easy, but in this book I've been working on, The Locked Part 3, which is Heaven Lake, it's broken all my rules anyway, so it doesn't really matter what I say at this point. This one has broken them all.
Now I want to know what your rules are that you said you're breaking.
Well, the first rule is don't spend 7 years writing a freaking book. That's just obscene. That's ridiculous. And it didn't do much for my fans either, but they hung in there. Now, it is the best book I've written. It is the longest book I've written. What happens to it after this, I don't know. I want to get it out to my fans who prepaid for it years ago and have not let me forget that. But,
Okay, so rule 1, don't spend 7 years writing a book. What else?
this was a different kind of book for me. I sort of let loose. After I'd written the first 100 pages, I didn't like them very much. And so I figured, okay, I'm going to just write characters. And I'm going to create the wildest characters I've ever created with no rules, no holds barred. And it's turned out to be the best. But it takes me forever to write a chapter. I mean, because I'm not always sure that that's the best place to let the characters go. And so they let me know pretty quickly if it's not to their liking.
So do you do a lot of like pausing, thinking, and then decisive drafting, or do you just keep ripping it back again and again and again until you?
Well, I have a beat sheet, and the beats sort of tell me what each chapter has to be. But how I get there is not always the same way because there's a million ways you can start a chapter. And I'm going to try to 500,000 ways for this book. But when I get it right, I know it. I know it's the right place. And then once I get that down, then I go on to the next one.
That sense of knowing that you've gotten it right, has that been with you your entire career, or has that sort of sense of certainty and comfort with your writing developed over time?
It took over time. It really did. And, I still have it to work with, thankfully. But like I said, this process has taken an awful long time. I don't know if that's because I'm older, because I have Parkinson's, or it's just because I let this book, I know I don't have too many books left in me. I'm not planning to die. I'm not planning to quit. I'm not planning to 2 more books and then I'm done. But there's other things I wanted to do with writing too. Maybe a couple scripts and a couple of books I do need to finish. Beginning with Lot 3 and then going to, as my fans would remind you, the last MEG book, MEG 7 Purgatory. That's next. That's got to be the best. I mean, that's got a lot of weight to shoulder. So
Something that you're saying that I really like, because often people think about series as sort of declining in energy, but yours seem to be ramping up.
Ramping up for the last one. And MEG Legacy will carry that forward. You'll have all 7 of them in there.
All right. And again, I'm skipping around a little bit, but you did say
I haven't seen the question, so you can skip around. I wouldn't know.
But my brain is going out of order.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll do my best though. So you were talking about things that you want to work on next. How much are you willing to tell us as a little preview about those projects?
Well, I mentioned Lot 3 and I mentioned Purgatory. So after that will finish the Legacy series too, which is my lasting series of everything MEG, including the MEG graphics, the MEG comics, the MEG I put together some short stories too that are going to be fitted into the storyline.
Nice.
So some of those have never been read before. So there's a lot of original material. And if you want to learn more about it, just go to meglegacy.com.
Awesome. So fans have a lot to look forward to with extras.
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell us about a book you've read recently by another author that you would recommend?
No. That was a yes or no question, right? No, I can't.
Okay.
And that doesn't mean that I don't like other authors. I do, but I'm too busy to read anything else, and I don't want to lose my voice. My
What about
writing.
a movie you'd recommend to us?
I haven't seen any so far. Um, Jurassic World. Um, I haven't heard that many good reviews from my friends, so I'll just wait till it's on TV.
Okay. I'm gonna go see it next week.
And by the way, I'm fair when I say those things because I've been interviewed about MEG and MEG the Trench, and MEG was good, but a book that I shall not talk about. The second one.
I won't ask about it.
I didn't answer anything. I just, deep thought about it.
Can I ask you what your favorite aspect of the first movie was? Maybe something you felt like they nailed, making it match what was in your head.
I thought they did a good job on the first one with the Mariana Trench and the way the shark moved. That was very important to me, and they got it all perfect. They really did. That's thanks to the producer Bell Avery. But when it became a success, the studio has a bunch of old people there that have been there forever, and it's nothing to them to hitch on for a ride
Mhm.
and take a couple points in the back end. And that guy didn't get it right for the sequel, and he took away Belle's power, and she was the gift that made the first one go. So, and it took her 8 years to get it in that position. So they really hurt the series when they took it away from them.
Well, we're going to tell everybody to not worry about that one. Just read all the books.
There you go.
Okay.
I want them to watch the movies. I really do. It's important that it's successful, and a lot of people work very hard on it. So, and I want it to be successful for the studio because Warner Brothers has been very kind to me. And I want them to make this a billion-dollar franchise. But if you're going to do that, listen to the author and stick with the story. Don't make up your own.
Right.
Because I spent years putting these together so that the stories flow.
And the fans loved it.
You spent a few months screwing it up.
Yeah.
Not the studio, but the producer who was at it.
Okay, so that's
And
advice
director did a lousy job too.
to movie makers. We're not just getting advice on writing here. We're getting advice for people getting into movies. Talk to the authors. Stick to the author's vision.
And one of the reasons that, when you ask people which was better, the book or the movie, they usually say the book. And it's because when it comes to adapting a screenplay, Hollywood has the Writers Guild has certain rules that make it impossible to stick to quality. Because they say that if you want to get writing credit for your script, you've got to change 30% of the material. Well, why would you change 30% of the material? Take the writing credit here, take my writing credit, but make it the way I want it, which is follow the book.
Right.
That's the best way for studios and the best way for audiences.
Yeah. You think they would just want to use the story that's already there because you already have all the fans.
Well, it's that rule about getting credit that screws everything up.
Yeah. I want to go, let's see. We got a few minutes and I want to make sure that we have time to see if anyone here would like to ask any questions. So I'm going to let Holly take our mic to the audience so that I can hear what they say. And then if I need to, I can repeat it as well. Okay, sir.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear him?
Can you hear
Yes,
me?
I can.
Okay.
So I really enjoyed the movies, and I never realized until today that they were based on novels. So I'm going to actually go back and start reading them. Do you recommend that we start from novel one, or is there a particular one that you recommend that a new reader would start from?
Well, it's always best to start with the first one. But if you don't worry about it, because each book has its own sort of explanation of what happened prior to this. So it gets you caught up pretty quick.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, we might have another one here.
As far as the movies go, what was your favorite part of the first movie?
I didn't catch all that.
Favorite part of the first movie. So like, is there a scene that you love from that one?
Yeah, the scene where my name comes up at the end in the credits, that was always my favorite. I think it was very well done, and they spelled my name right, which always is a good thing. Other than that one, I think that there was a scene when they were chasing the shark, and it spun around and went deep. I thought that it was great special effects, really well done.
That made me think of another question, if that's okay. So when you're writing like action adventure stuff, how do you know when you need to give the reader a breather? So do you follow any kind of pattern?
Like after that chapter,
yeah, like high tension, high action, high danger. When the adrenaline is sort of pumping, is there a length that you like to go to? Is there a certain amount of rests per chapter or per scene, or how do you work that out so that you're giving the reader little breaks to make the action more impactful when they get to that?
I usually have two stories going at once, an A story and a B story, so that when I write a cliffhanger for the A story, it'll stay at the cliffhanger, and then I'll move into the B story, where it's a lot calmer. So the next B chapter would probably be a setup to the next action sequence. So it's sort of built in.
All right, that's awesome. Okay, does anybody have any other questions? Okay. All right, our host, Stephen here.
Thank you for coming, Steve. Really, really appreciate it. I'm a huge fan of the MEG series. And what I wanted to ask was, because I had a certain authors that inspired me as a child to become an author. And I was just curious about, were there any writers that were primary inspirations for you in becoming an author?
Yeah, that's a good question. One of the best books I remember reading was Bram Stoker's Dracula. I thought the way he had it going from journals to diaries through each of the characters was brilliant. Ian Fleming's James Bond series, I read all those books at least 5 or 6 times. Totally different than the movies. And when they made Casino Royale, the second time with Daniel Craig, the way they did that was brilliant, because they followed the book and they made us believe that this is what this guy was like. And they didn't need all the special effects. They just needed a good script, which they got. Of course, I read Jaws, and along with Jaws, I read all these true shark attack stories, which gave me a real good feel for that information. So when I wrote the first book 20 years later, I knew what the sources were. And one of the worst shark bites was a guy in Australia, and he and I become friends, and which was amazing. I thought, so when Meg came out, they were fans of Meg, and so it was really nice to go that way with them. Other books. Pretty much the things I like to read are action, adventure, a little bit of horror, but not too much. So sure, anything that fits into those books, I probably read.
Awesome.
Michael Creighton was a big writer for me, and as I think of more, I'll blurt it out.
Yeah, Steve, it's Holly. We have a couple more questions. as far as like the MEG series, what do you feel was the most challenging to write in that series? And what is your favorite book from that series?
The biggest challenge in writing the book, at first it was all challenging, to be honest. It's still challenging, but you know, you want people to be hanging on the edge of your words. So getting a good feel for the cliffhangers, getting a good feel for the action sequences, they're always the most important thing. As for which of the MEG books is my favorite, I'd have to say Purgatory, because I haven't written it yet. So now I'll have to live by that standard.
Good. Any other questions? I think that's it.
Thank you all. So Steve, before
By the
we,
way, just for your listeners, Purgatory is not written yet, so please don't email me and ask me when they're getting their signed copy in the mail. When it's
Great.
written.
you have to be patient, everybody.
They've been very patient, actually.
But it's going to be worth it.
Yep, definitely be worth it.
It'll be worth it. So Steve, is there anything you want us to know that none of us asked about, something that you've been thinking about, something that you like your fans to know or to be aware of, or that you'd like us all to do?
Well, if you want to be a character in one of my books, if you want to find out more about the books, if you want to find out when they're arriving, updates, or a good joke or a good recipe, go to stevealten.com and register for my email newsletter.
Okay.
Because that's how I'll keep informed once a month for you. And I'll give you emails that you can track me down and get an answer to your questions.
That's so great. Thank you. So he's promising to answer our emails, guys.
I answer every email for
Every
20
email.
years. Everyone,
So sign up for the newsletter and send your questions.
even the nasty ones.
Even the nasty ones. I don't know. I don't know if we're getting special permission there.
Fortunately, there weren't that many, but when you're kind to somebody, even if they're nasty to you, it's amazing how quickly you can turn them around.
Well,
But it's
everybody here will be
a
nice.
wrong first impression, you know. But once we get through that, they become my best readers anyway.
I bet. Well, everybody's afraid of Holly here, so nobody's going to send anything nasty to you.
Come on, you can do it, Holly.
All right. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. We really appreciate this.
Thank you.
All righty. Okay. Thanks, everybody.